What's up, y'all? It's your boy Jason here with the Counterpart Bros. Coming to let you know that the official date has been set for the anniversary episode, and it will be Thursday, April 21st, episode 53. So mark your calendars down, make sure you check it out. A lot of big things planned. And make sure you continue to get us some messages for the anniversary show. And again, get those to us by Thursday, April the 14th. That way we have time to get it into the actual show. And again, these are just messages to let us know what you thought about the first year of the Counterpart Bros, what you liked, what you didn't like, favorite segments, favorite moments, things like that. Send those to us at counterpartbros@gmail.com or go to counterpartbros.com, click the message link, or call us at 405-877-BROS, or hit the Counterpart Bros pages on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and TikTok. You know what it is. Whichever way you want to, hit us up. But remember, when it comes to all things Counterpart Bros, make sure you like us, love us, share us, and follow us. Because if you like us, why wouldn't you?
Welcome back to Counterpart Bros. Jason and I are fresh off the segment regarding PK Subban and dealing with racist-ass hockey fans over the course of his 13 years of being a professional. Hell, probably longer. That guy's probably heard more shit in...
Yeah, not just fans, though. Players, too.
In, rec leagues, growing up and shit like that, then it would probably be debilitating for anybody to endure what he's probably had to deal with. So, in this third segment, we're going to cover a state we probably haven't talked about in a while. Florida. We tried to give y'all a rest, but there's always some sort of crazy legislation or crazy event happening in America's state that's shaped like a penis. And I'm referencing an article from Joe Hernandez on NPR. Florida House passes controversial measure dubbed the Don't Say Gay bill by critics. Florida's House of Representatives passed a controversial bill on Thursday limiting when and how teachers and school staff can discuss gender and sexual orientation in the classroom. Opponents, many of whom have taken to calling the measure the Don't Say Gay bill, say it will make it harder for LGBTQ youth who already face a higher rate of bullying and higher risk of suicide than their straight cisgender peers. But the Republican sponsor behind this bill says that it aims to have schools teach gender and sexuality at an appropriate age and to keep parents informed about what's happening in the classroom. The legislation prohibits any instruction about sexuality or gender between kindergarten and third grade, or in a manner that is not age appropriate or developmentally appropriate for students in accordance with state standards. All right. There's more, but I'm going to stop there. Jason, what are your thoughts on that?
So, when reading about this, of course, like you mentioned, they're referring to, I have other thoughts as well, but they're referring to age-appropriate times. I'm like, okay. Well, what's age-appropriate? And two, who determines that? And obviously, like you just said, it's between kindergarten and third grade. Like, okay. So basically, we're talking 5-year-olds and 8-year-olds. All right. Fair enough. I was watching, I'm not sure if you or anybody listening to this is familiar, but there's a channel on YouTube that I follow called Jubilee. And they have many different types of series they do on there. But basically, the whole point of it is they try to make people aware and build awareness, social stuff, social experiments, things like that. One of their series they do is a series called Middle Ground. And one of the recent episodes of Middle Ground they've done is they had trans men on one side, conservative men on the other side. And basically just like a panel for people to kind of discuss their positions on a certain issue or topic. And obviously this one, you can guess what it is. And the people on the trans side were saying that even though they have made the actual physical transition until later in life, they said they did kind of have awareness and feelings of knowing that something's not right. I know I'm biologically a female or a male, but in here I feel like the sex that I'm not assigned. And they felt that around a time frame around 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th grade. Now, so it's really funny that this really kind of popped on the radar after seeing that, and then seeing that they're saying, "Hey, age appropriate is it between kindergarten and third grade? Well, according to the people I'm just referring to, they were aware of the fact that they had these feelings and emotions. Now, not saying school is or isn't a place to kind of have those discussions, but at the same time, why can't it be? Now, I don't know where the boundary is when it comes to, there's a lot to be made for this. It's up to the parents. I know, obviously, when it comes to parent involvement, teachers are going to have their opinions on that completely. But I think it's very interesting that Florida decided to make a whole get legislation involved with this and say, hey, you can't do this, can't do it. But what I also find interesting is that they're taking this stance legally. And I know it's not necessarily the same thing, but obviously one of the most recent, most famous mass shootings that happened in this country happened in Florida, in Orlando, at a gay nightclub. So it's kind of interesting that you would think that the state of Florida, not that they should use that incident for this, but as far as the state of Florida, you think would be a little more sensitive about that topic because of that. And not only is Florida, I'm not saying it's New York, but Florida is probably a decent melting pot of the whole country because people flock to Florida, either for retirement or just because they want to move to Florida for the better weather. So you think they'd be a little more sensitive about that stuff, but also, I said this to you before and other people as well, I think a lot of people forget that even though Florida is sunny, beaches, it's paradise, girls in bikinis, things like that, they forget that Florida is still the South. I know people don't always lump in Florida with the Georgias, the Mississippis, the Alabamas, the Louisianas, the South Carolinas, or whatever. Because, again, Florida is that paradise. That's what people think of. But Florida is still the South. Now, I don't want to lump Florida into being the only state that probably does stuff like this because we know they're not. But it might be a paradise because of the beaches, but in a case like this, it ain't paradise. Those are my initial thoughts.
One thing I was going to bring up is not everybody. It's always funny that they I don't know what they decided to make about those grade levels, right? They decided, it's just too young for you to determine where you stand. I'm just like, what? I'm just curious what the hell they think is actually going to come out of that. It feels like they're afraid of the gay agenda. like there's a gay recruiting army. I'm like, fam, this is not your local armed forces branch outpost. Okay, like I often find that a lot of this legislature is trying to solve a problem that doesn't exist.
What problem is that, Terrence? Or what's the perceived problem, you think? Because I agree with you. What's the problem here? I don't get it.
They worried that somebody going to be potentially exposed to a lifestyle that they find objectionable. It's fucking weird.
And real quick, I want to cut your thoughts off here, but I feel like there's probably a lot of parent involvement here. Like, I don't want my kid exposed to it, so let's make legislation about it. My thought is this: with what's on TV these days, kids are going to be well aware of same-sex couples, or even if it was just that, two men in a relationship, two women in a relationship. Take out all the other letters in the LGBTQ. Just take that. That starts on TV, folks. Hell, they're bringing back the Proud Family. That cartoon, if anybody remembers that, the Proud Family. You can look it up, Google it, and apparently one of the characters in that is now openly, part of the LGBT community, where I don't think it was before. So guess what? That stuff's here, folks. Your kids are watching this stuff. It's there. You can't hide it, whether it's in school or otherwise. But that triggered me a little bit. Hashtag triggered.
So I'm just going to keep reading down here. It says it would also guarantee parents access to their children's education and health records.
What does that have to do with it?
No. Let's stop right there. I'm just gonna say, and if I'm wrong, then someone will have to just call me out to it, and I'll just have to admit it on the next show. How the fuck is that not already the case? It just seems like we need to have this. I'm like, I'm fairly certain you already have that.
Maybe
Like,
maybe in Florida they don't have that. Maybe it's backwards down there. Who knows?
if there's a change in the student services or monitoring related to the mental, emotional, and physical health or well-being and the students and the school's ability, like it just feels very boilerplate. Like it's not fucking doing anything.
Now, of course, I do want to point out that also there was a Stop Woke Act bill passed by Florida as well, which it could be the same House bill. Who knows? Doesn't matter. Um, but basically, they're taking the same stance when it comes to legislatively, when it comes to, and this is quotations, folks, because it's all written out in every article you read about it, critical race theory. So, so again, it seems like you were saying, they seem like they're trying to hide certain aspects of, you know, well, in this case, hide certain aspects of current society as well as past society from kids who are, was it kindergarten? So kids who are 5 to 8 years old, 5 to 9 years old, whatever. It's kind of like, okay, which I always still find interesting that people are always trying to preserve history in whatever ways or another. I'm not necessarily saying the government's trying to do that, but people are trying to preserve history so much, but yet they're totally willing to try to put aside what's happening currently. And I don't get that. This stuff's cool. This stuff's happening, especially when it comes to the LGBTQ talk. That stuff's going on. It's here. And it's extremely likely in some of these classrooms there's going to be one person who is actually part of the LGBT community, whether they know it now or not. So why hide it, bro? Why try to cover that from the other kids in the classroom who aren't, when they're going to learn about it anyway? So now I do agree. Now I do agree. Yes, lessons probably should be catered to kids who are 5 years old. Yeah, you shouldn't try to get those same type. Whatever lesson you're going to give about this stuff, probably shouldn't be the same you'll get to a high school kid that you should to a 5-year-old. It should be catered to a 5-year-old. Yes,
I feel like it's already there. That's my point.
What do you mean it's already there?
Whatever would constitute health education, kindergarten through third grade, obviously a little different than what we went through at Shepherd in high school, right?
Health education or sex ed? Or what are we talking about?
I consider them to be one and the same.
All right.
Because they literally called it health class, is my point. They literally called it health class when we were going through it in high school. So.
I kind of feel like yeah, there was a health class. I agree. I kind of feel like the health class, like the whole semester of it, wasn't just talking about sex ed though. I feel like a certain portion of it was sex ed, but the rest of it was not. I kind of have a hard time believing for a whole semester we talked about nothing but sex the whole time. I don't recall that. I could be wrong.
I'm not disagreeing with you. I'm just saying that whatever the content is going to, it's a completely different audience. And this legislature is effectively saying parents need to have a choice. I'm like, take your ass to a PTA meeting. You are going to have as much say. Like, it's insane. It's insane that I think this is just good politics for the Republican Party, by the way. And if last night's response to the State of the Union is any indication, yeah, Republicans have just decided that, oh, we're just going to be the party of choice for parents or some crazy ass shit like that. Can't believe I gave y'all that motherfucking game for free. Invoice is coming. Anyways. But yeah, that it's all about the projection of the perception that, oh, parents are not being listened to, parents are not being heard. But yeah, as I'm reading this article, and I actually clicked on the link to the actual legislation, it's just like parents have to be notified for this and parents have to be notified for that, and I'm just, Jason, I'm having a very hard time believing that those procedures aren't already in place.
Well, I won't try to pretend and argue with you on that because obviously, as people like to point out, I'm not a parent. So, but I can definitely understand your position on that, and not going to disagree. As I said, I really think that's really all what it is. They just want to basically they're kind of handcuffing the education system and giving the control to the parents. Like I said, we all know teachers here. I just mentioned Paul from Illinois. We know the teacher. My mom, a former educator. Your wife, educator. Um, I think they'll all say that the parent involvement is probably a little too much as it is, and not necessarily about parent involvement when it comes to their own kid. It's parent involvement when it comes to them trying to be a Karen, when it comes to controlling everything that their school or district tries to educate their kids. You know what I mean? Like, again, fully recognizing folks that I'm not a parent. I'm saying it out loud. I'm not a parent, so I agree with you. I'm not. But it just kind of feels like people need to take the leash off of the kids to some degree. And I understand they're not high school kids we're talking about here, but take the leash off your kids and let them be able to learn some stuff about reality that's happening into the world today. We're not living in 1920 where you have to pretend to be something you're not, or have to hide who you are. Like the last article said, PK Subban trying to drag the hockey league into the 21st century. Well, folks, guess what? We are in the 21st century where people who are LGBTQA plus should be open and free to be who they are, express who they are, and ideally nobody care. You may not like it, doesn't mean you have to treat them differently. I.e., also doesn't mean that kids in school, regardless of age, shouldn't be able to learn it and be aware of it and be good about it. Because maybe if kids were to learn about these things when they're young, maybe they won't grow old and be as bigoted and be much of a. I want to use a four-letter word here, but I'm trying to be good here. But maybe they won't be as bigoted and as much of much a-holes as their parents are when it comes to matters like this. So, can I say a-holes? Is that okay?
Say whatever you want. No, actually, you can't say whatever you want. I think I'm just reading into this article, and one of the first verbs that stood out to me was control.
Oh, I'm referring to the Janet Jackson song, folks.
Hush. It says
That's a different singer.
It says requiring such procedures to reinforce the fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children in a specified manner. And I just thought that was interesting. I'm like, this is a fucking power play, man. Like, it'd be different if you couldn't email or call your fucking teacher. That's
Correct
why
me
the
if I'm
shit
wrong.
is whack.
Correct me if I'm wrong. And again, not a parent. I feel like based off talking to parents who do have kids, whether they're young or older, I feel like the connectivity between parent and teacher in general now is actually a lot better than it was back when you and I were kids because of technology. I always feel like, there's like some sort of system where parents can easily check on the progress of their kid when it comes to classes, grades, things like that. Is that pretty accurate? I'm not sure what the setup is for you and your kids, but is there that kind of connectivity? Like, for example, is there some type of system or app that you can log into to see like updates daily when it comes to what your kids are doing academically when it comes to grades and things like that, or even just communicating with the teacher? Is that fair to say and accurate?
Yeah, you have, all sorts of apparatuses, notifications if someone's tardy, notifications if someone didn't turn in an assignment, this, that, and the third. And ultimately, if you want more information, that's what the hell fucking parent teacher conferences are for anyway. Like, the 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 entire premise is flawed because they're Florida's not going to be satisfied until they YouTube University the fuck out of the school system down there and just say in plain English, yeah, we think we can do this job better than you can, because that's what it sounds like. So Those are my
Well, it is
thoughts.
the almighty Florida, so
Yeah, I
the
think in
almighty Florida,
general,
Terrence.
yeah, I think in general the but between bullshit with arguing about whether or not kids should have been masked up in schools, um, and dealing with that for the last 2 years. The last thing, if I was a teacher, want to hear about is how the average parent doesn't feel like they're involved.
Yeah, that's from what I again
It
not a
seems
parent,
like
but from what I'm seeing on social
that seems
media.
like yeah, it seems like, oh, so basically because we're not doing it 100% the way you want it done, you're not involved. That's not the definition of involved. You have a say. You may not have 100% final say. If you want 100% final say, you fucking homeschool them.
You know what? And a lot of parents are doing that these days. So, as someone who has seen it and worked in it indirectly, a lot of parents took that option of homeschooling their kids, either just because they didn't want to send them to school in COVID or masking, or just because they just feel like they can do a better job. It's happening in
Yeah,
record numbers.
yeah, yeah. I've seen. Yeah, I look for every supposed homeschooling expert. I've also seen a situation in which that didn't work out well for the student. So
Oh, same exactly. I mean, so again, as some as you know, I used to work for the NCAA in the eligibility center, and 2021, I think 2020 as well, saw record numbers of homeschool kids coming through the eligibility center. Record numbers. And personally, I've worked with some of them, and I agree with you completely that doesn't always work out the best for the student because, again, parent wanted to be more involved, which in general isn't necessarily a bad thing, but they didn't know what the hell they were doing, and that messed up the kid. And all of a sudden, their freshman year at college is now a lot more janky or it can't happen because of the education or lack thereof that I got from homeschool, i.e., mom and dad.
well,
So I go back to stuff I've said before about this subject when it comes to parents. Parents, it's not always about you.
says the guy did. Says this guy. Anyways.
Yeah,
All right.
again, I'm not a parent. But there you go. So.
Yeah. That concludes our segment on yet another Florida-rific legislative session, and then we will close out the show.